Okay, hi, I'm Mike Folkestad. I just finished fishing a tournament at Clear Lake. And to give you a little update of what I learned, very obviously I got to go back to school. Learned a lot about the fishing after the tournament. The weather was beautiful during the tournament. It was like 80 degrees each day, still no wind. During practice we had 2 real rainy days and water temperature dropped about 10 degrees, but then it warmed back up. And there were a lot of fish I seen milling around in different areas, shallow. And I couldn't get them to bite, and I wasn't smart enough to go to those areas first thing in the morning and catch them in the first hour. The few areas I did try, I didn't get bit, and I caught a few fish on the trash fish. And those were all good quality fish. And then I actually just couldn't get bit after, say, 8 o'clock hardly, and I had to drop shot a 4-inch Folkestad special and caught a few fish. That way managed to get a limit the first day. I got 2 good ones first thing in the morning. Then I managed to get a limit on Folkestad special during the rest of the day. And then yesterday kind of going for broke, throwing the trash fish and LV 500, and I managed to catch the 1 big one like I said. And then I only caught 1 other little fish on a 4-inch Folkestad special. And I just couldn't get bit doing it that way either. I fished north, south, middle, all over the place. I burned a good tank of gas, and that's a lot of gas at that lake every day. Running around, trying to figure something out, trying different things. And, you know, like I said, I caught a few fish in the morning on the trash fish, and then not enough, and then I'd have to go to a 4-inch Folkestad special or a 6-inch Folkestad and manage to catch a few smaller fish. Other than that, I just couldn't get bit during the day.
What did you notice about the conditions of the lake?
I noticed that it was real still, and we got real still and calm, and the algae got an algae bloom, and it was very noticeable that it kind of gave a little cover for those fish, and there were just a lot of fish, and 3 to 1 foot of water cruising around with that little blanket of algae. You could still kind of see them underneath there, and I think they felt real comfortable. It was surprising how many fish were up and cruising around, but just couldn't hardly get them to bite on anything. Water temperature during the cold front before the tournament had dropped down to about 60, and then it got back up to 67 during the day, about a 10 to 8 degree drop, you know. So there's a big temperature change in the surface. Well, the one thing that was real noticeable with the trash fish is if you could find those little areas that had a bunch of hitch other than the silver sides, it seemed like that was a key, but not everyone seemed to have fish in it. The few that I had and caught my few trash fish in the morning, it was so limited. Very obviously I just didn't have a real good area. And I had a couple areas that had hitch that I went to in the morning. I couldn't even get a bite. I know the largemouth were there somewhere, but these guys knew what they were doing. They're keeping it kind of quiet, so I don't know for sure. I hear a lot of different things, but definitely some of them knew exactly what to do.
Were you able to get into Rodman at all?
Yeah, I didn't even attempt to go into Rodman. I never fished beyond the bridge. 15, 20 years ago I used to go back in there and flip some. But now if I fish Rodman area, it's always out in the grass outside.
When you were drop shotting, how deep?
The fish, you know, it was very surprising. There were so many shallow fish, and I actually caught fish down in 30 feet. And so the fish were kind of scattered. You could, you know, see them on your HD electronics, and you know, they were from 30 feet on up, and really it seemed like the ones that were catchable were the ones that are around the hitch or the silver sides. You know, there was a lot of little bass shallow. You could catch 6 to 10 inches, 12 inches in a foot and a half of water all over the place on little 4-inch worm if that's what you wanted to target, but I stayed away from that.
Did you find grass anywhere?
The grass is pretty limited. They've done a lot of spraying, and then they're out there with grappling hooks ripping it up off the bottom. They've been working the lake when I was practicing, and there's patches of grass around, and when I first started practicing I was catching some fish in the patches, you know, out in 9 foot of water or so, and that just seemed to end. It went nowhere for me. That started the first day of practice, and it just dissipated. I never caught a fish doing that again. Like I was using a Cinco then, and that kind of just stopped, went nowhere. So those fish moved on somewhere.
Do you think that there'll be the big umbrella rig frenzy like there was last year?
Well, I'm sure this umbrella rig's going to get going. It's getting closer. Once the water gets a little cooler, like last year, all the guys are counting on it. They got all their rigs ready. They're already trying it, and it's catching a few fish, but it's not the deal right now. So everybody's praying it'll work. It probably will. It might not be as good as last year because it was out of control last year, but I'm sure it's going to be a great bait come the wintertime. Mike Folkestad with your Western Bass Clear Lake Fishing Report.